Dr. Kuti Puong Dong, who kindly receiving our invitation to share her knowledge and updated information in our 3-in-1 program. Actually, she's one of my best laboratory mates. She's experienced in fishery economic and management. So that's why today we invite her, and she'd like to share the lectures about fisheries economics and how it's improved recent times. For our student, comments and comment are welcome in the end of the lecture. You can ask her directly, or you can just put the question on the chat columns. And yes, Dr. Dong, the screen and time are yours.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Okay. So good morning, everyone, and very happy for me today to share about my research experience. Actually, my research field now is in supply chains and traceability after my graduation from Hokkaido University with Lady Sang. So, but first of all, this week, I will try to share to you about the principle of supply chains and how to apply supply chain in seafood and fishery sector, because if you want to think about traceability, you have to think about supply chains first and the theory and the background of supply chain first. But first of all, please let me introduce a little about me. So here's my picture, and you also can bring my face in your desktop. So I graduated from Hokkaido University for a PhD degree, and before that I graduated my university in Cần Thơ University of Vietnam and master in fishery and agriculture management and economics from Tromsø University, Norway. And this is my working experience. Actually, after graduation from university, I work for Cần Thơ University as a lecturer until now. But during my working, I go abroad for my studying, and my specialty fields and research field now in fisheries, global trade, economics and management. And my master thesis is in about non-tariff barriers, how to export the seafood products to the US market to the developed countries, and how we respond their requirements to export our product to those countries. And now I'm working in the research field in supply chains and management and economics analysis. So maybe you hear more from me about Cần Thơ University. So let me introduce a little bit about Cần Thơ University. So please give me some, maybe 5 minutes. Okay, I will share you about the introduction about Cần Thơ University. And so sorry if my skill to in the making video is not good. So please, I try to make this video and try to share with you. This is the graduation ceremony. Okay, thank you for your view. Yes, so sorry because it's quite long, but because I would like to introduce you about my university, and if you want, you can visit us and joining us for research and exchange activities. We have so many international programs, so we can. This point will. I hope this will be start for the next collaboration in the future, ladies and. So turn back to the topic today. I will introduce you about the principle of supply chain management and how we apply to fishery sector. Because maybe next week I will talk about traceability, and as I mentioned before, we should talk about supply chain theory background first, because traceability is implemented, and if you would like to apply and successful implement traceability in your sector, so please think about supply chain management first. So I will start my sharing today for the first definition about supply chain management. And what is supply chain management? Before I talk about how to apply to seafood sector. So as you can see in the screen, this is the main function and main principle of supply chain management. So in overall, supply chain management, including the management process of three flows. First is product flows, and the second is information flows, and the third is finance flows along the chain of the distribution channel. Like you start from producers, and the product will provide from producer to wholesalers, and from wholesaler to processor, something like this, and so on. And this means that you have to follow, and you have to monitor, and you have to manage three flows along the chain if you want to distribute your product from producers to consumer. That's it. This means that in the supply chain management, all activities have and should be focused in three flows: product flows, information flows, and finance. So you can see my simulation. The product flows will be downstream flows from producers to consumers, and between that we can, and it can be provided or distributed to the middlemen or retailers to consume before it will be provided to consumer. But information flows in supply chain. If you want to think about traceability, you have to think about downstream flows and upstream flow also. This means that you have to follow the information from producers to consumers, and the upstream flow from consumer back to producer, back to their provider, back to the sellers of the product. This is the information flows, and the most important in the management of information flows in supply chain. Because if you only manage the information flow from producer to consumer, it means that you only focus on the downstream agents, you can be skip, and you can be miss the information about the quality of the product from producer to the consumer. And if you want to manage quality products, you have to think about upstream information flows, because the consumer, they want to know about the information of the product their purchase or their consume. What is this and what is included in and how the product is and was produced from producer before they consume. So that's why we have to think about both downstream and upstream. But the finance flow is the backward and the opposite way, opposite flows of the product flows, because the finance flow will be paid from consumer to their seller and from retailer to their sellers. Again, it means that the consumer will pay for retailers to get the product. Retailer will pay for distribution as my sharing to get the product, something like this. So for the financial flow, we have to think about upstream, backward flows, but the product flows either forward flows. So please think about 3 flows before we start to supply chain. We start to talk about supply chain management. And in this flow, this chain, we should think about the first tier customers. Think about your first tier customer, the second tier customer. As you can see in the screen, finally, all producer or middleman or distributor or retailer, they have to provide their product to the final consumers, to the end user. But the producers, they have to think about the requirement of wholesaler first. And wholesalers now is called as first tier customer of producers. And processors is the second tier customer of producers. And so have the producers think about the requirement of producers. I will answer yes, because the producers will put the requirement to wholesalers, and then wholesaler will transfer the requirement to the producers. So we have to think about first is we have to think about the first tier customer, about your customer, the first customer first, and then you have to think about the second, about the third, and about the end user consumer, because you have to adapt, you have to respond on their requirement, but not directly. The directly requirement is from your first tier customer, but the indirect requirements is the end user consumer in the product flows. Please, first you should think about 3 flows in supply chain, and especially the information flows. If you want to think about traceability, you have to think backward and forward flows to manage information flows. So what is supply chain management is in the just definition. So as you can see, we have to think about 3 flows, and we have to think how to connect on space of the distribution channel, and how to connect on agents in supply chain. Because the supply chain can be simple, but also can be very complicated supply chain. The product flows can be very simple only from producers to consumer, but in some cases they have to, and they maybe will be provided through very complicated distribution channel, from producer to many wholesaler, and from wholesaler to many processor before come to consumer. So we have to think about a network, and supply chains is a network of connected and interdependent organization mutually and cooperatively working together to control, to manage and improve the flows of materials and information from suppliers to end users. From suppliers to end users. So please think about how to connect them, how to integrate them, and how to call for their cooperation and then their collaboration and integration. To do that, we have to think about how to call for the integration. We have to think about the policy. We have to think about how to share the benefit together, and we have to work together in supply chain. If we work independently, so sorry, we cannot say supply chain, because especially in globalization, we have to think about how to adapt, how to respond, and how to join to the game of all over the world. So we have to think about integration and contribution of the relationship between the agents in supply chain is the most important in supply chain management. That's why I start the definition by the word network. You have to think about a network of connected and interdependent organizations to call for their cooperation and to call for their willing to work together to control, to manage and improve the flow of materials and information from suppliers to end users. So that is the definition of supply chain. And again, as you can see, this is an example of very complicated supply chain. Maybe from suppliers, from material. Here is you have to manage, you have to think about the material cost. And you think each agent will have their own interest in. Like suppliers, they will focus on material costs. They will focus on their profit. They will focus on their how to maximize their benefit, and they will think about how to sell their product to the manufacturer or to wholesaler as quick as possible, something like this. But for the manufacturers, as you can see, they have to think about their supplier, how to negotiate with their suppliers to get the cheapest cost, to get the minimum cost and maximum profit. And they have also they will have their own interest in. And distributor, how about distributor? They also think about their benefit. They will have their own benefits, so they have to focus, because first of all they have to maintain their business first before think about the others. So in the supply chains, because we call the chain, so we have to connect on independent agents, all dependent organizations. They have to work together and they have to think about the final consumers. So the contribution of relationship is the most important in the supply chain management. So please change your mind. We have to work together. Not only in Vietnam, not only Indonesia, we have to collaboration. We have to collaboration with other developed countries to deal with the globalization situation now. Because we have to adapt, we have to respond the requirement. We want to sell our product. We want to export our product. So we have to think about their requirement. We have to sell our product to Japan. So we have to think about what the Japanese consumer need. what Japanese consumer think about. So if we know, we will adapt, and we if we can respond, we will able to export our product to their countries. Otherwise, we will be rejected. So please change your mind first. So supply chain management plays as a significant role in the development and civilization. It's much about managing suppliers as about managing customer. And we have to consider both sides. Not only our partner, not only our customer, but for both sides. We have to think about, if you are manufacturers, you have to think about your suppliers and your consumer, your customer. And if you are suppliers, you are the producer, you have to think about your input suppliers and your customer. And not only first tier customer, but also the second customer and the final consumer. Yeah. And the main purpose of supply chain management is to mitigate risk. Because when we can call for the interaction, we can call for the collaboration, we can reduce the risk, and we can mitigate, we can share the risk together. And we can we can control the supply monitoring. And we can schedule our operation, our activities, because we can connect to the others, so we can make the plan, exactly plan, we can forecast, we can estimate the demand. And if you can estimate, you can forecast, you can negotiate, and so you can schedule your operation. And when you can schedule your operation, you can minimize the cost, because we can negotiate the price, we can negotiate about the quantity to ensure that your operation will be maintained, even though you have to deal very certain risk in this situation, like COVID pandemic, like Corona, like COVID pandemic. If you can adapt, you can schedule first, you can negotiate first, and we can integrate together, we can avoid the limited and the stuff of the supply chain in the world. Okay, and after this, you can select your supplier. As I mentioned, you can negotiate the price, and if we cannot negotiate, we can choose another supplier if you have a schedule and you have a plan. And so far, you can manage your inventory, and you can manage how your logistic network will be, and then we can connect together. Because maybe you hear a lot about logistics during the COVID pandemic, but the logistics over the world have been stopped because the COVID pandemic, and big logistic network stop will and worse lead to the what's happened, and we have to stop many major business activities all over the world. And now in my countries, the products, and it's very difficult to get the food, it's very difficult to get the goods and services, because the limited of logistics, and because the logistics have been stopped during COVID pandemic. And that's why if we can control, we can manage supply chain, we can connect everyone together, and we have to act, we have to do together. So that's the new ways to adapt into the market, especially in the globalization situation now. And the most important purpose of supply chain is information flows and products, as I mentioned. If you can manage information flow and think about please, when you try to manage information flow, you have to think how to supply the information, how to provide the information just in time, and just quality and transparency of the information. If we can do that, we can manage those information along the supply chain just in time and transparency and trustworthy. You can manage your product, manage your quality, and you can control, you can schedule your operation and minimize the cost and maximum the profit. And then if we want to do that, we have to share about the information. We have to think about it, how to sharing information or its agent along the supply chains, and how to integrate together, and how to exploring the information technology through the supply chain. This is the most thinking about traceability. What will I talk about in the next week? Yeah, please think about this. We have to think about, again, we have to think about how to share the information, how to conform integration, and how to apply, how to explore the information technology to support to the contribution of traceability. About the finance flow, please think about, because we have to manage finance flow as well, because we cannot contribute traceability or we cannot improve your quality product if we don't have the finance resources. So the financial service in the supply chain based on the cooperation of at least 3 parties. First is buyer, second is the sellers, and the third one is the civil actors, including supporters, including the institution to supply the credit, to supply the finance resources. So we have to think, we have to think about how to apply technical and how to call for the support from the bank, and how to contribute the policy invitation from the policy makers to support info, not only one each agent of supply chain, but for all of agents of supply chain, please. Yeah, the total environment of financial flow should be celebrated at least 3 parties. Yeah, actor, supporters, and the chain context. It means that the buyer, the sellers, and the supporters. Yeah. And you have to think about the financial flows to cover 4 aspects: the product, financial service, information exchange, and risk management. Yeah. Finally, 3 flows in supply chains also focus on the how to improve their product and how to share the information. And but finally, final purpose of sharing information is improve the product and improve the economic efficiency of each agent along supply chain. So we have to collaborate, we have to connect 3 flows in supply chain management. And the most important of supply chain management nowadays is you have to think about the 4R character from risk profile. First is responsiveness, and the second resilient, and the third is reliability, and the fourth is relationships. So if we can do 4R, we can manage supply chain. And the most important to get for are, first, we have to point for the collaboration and integration of all agents in supply chain. Yeah, and the supply chain should support the satisfaction of end user requirement, please. And this is the first one of the today, and the second one is the how to apply, how we can apply to fisheries sector. Yeah, first of all, we should think about globalization and the effect of globalization. So you can see, if we join to the globalization games, like globalization game, we have to follow all rules and all regulations of globalization. So let's think about, if we have any problem in one country, the effect will be very quickly affect to all countries all over the world. So we have to solve the problem together. Like COVID pandemic, is happened in our countries, and we cannot solve only independently. Okay, so we have to think together. We have to share the vaccine. We have to share the methods to deal with the treatment or something like this. So, and in seafood, in fishery sector, let's see the map. We can see the global south, like the yellow one. Okay, we including us, Indonesia here, and Vietnam here. So we supply 60% seafood products to the world. So the North Park is the most important market of us. And but if we want to export to the North Park, we have to think about their requirement, and they mostly focus on quality and safety. And also, to deal with the quality and safety, they figure out many requirements and many certificates to require our quality, to improve, to increase our quality products, to adapt and to export to their countries. We have to respond on requirements, and including those certification not only focus on quality and safety, but also focus on the environmental, about the welfare, human, also about about the illegal, about the unregulated, and about the unreported IUU fishing as well. So we have to deal with their requirements to export our product to their countries. So, and as you can see, I simulate this, the requirements from the North Park, from the importing countries of the fishery products. In some high standard markets, high standard level, high standard livelihood markets, they have issued so many laws and certificates to require our products before export to their countries. And and from other countries, from the rest part of the global, from the world, nowadays consumers also increasing focus on the safety and quality of the product through the SPS regulations, like you can see HACCP or GMP certificates. But for the high standard markets like US, like EU or Canada or Japan, they not only focus on food safety, but also focus on traceability and on certificates required by high standard market, including chain of custody required. So like ASC or like MSC or like Global Gap or BAB, we have to think about how to connect all agents of supply chain. So that's why if we want to support, we want to export our product to the high standard markets, we have to think about traceability, not only traceability, but also certificate and chain of custody certificates. Yeah, let's see this picture. We have to deal with serious pressures from importing countries. If we want to export our product to those countries, but we cannot adapt all their requirements, so sorry, we don't have, so we have to be rejected. So please think about this. Very, very serious pressure from importing countries. But we have nowadays, we have to deal with very complicated in product flows in management. Because the first flow of supply chain is product flows. And we want to improve our product. We have to improve the quality in each space of supply chain. But now we have to deal with a very complicated product flows in the supply, in the seafood, in the fishery sector. This is the example. I think we can see this again in the next week. But this is the example of Indonesia. Example of Indonesia, and the case, the detail of this case we will see again in the next week. As you can see, from fishermen or farmers, it's very long way to approach to consumers. We have to spend so many steps of middlemen, of processor, of exporter, importers, traders, and to the final consumer in global world. So as you can see, middlemen plays as a linkage actors to bring our product from fishermen or from farmers to consumer. But the real situation in our countries now, as you can see, fishermen or farmers is very lack of financial resources. They are very small scale producers, so they have to deal with they have to negotiate with the middleman to bring their product to the processor or to consumer. Cannot provide directly, but we have to grow the middleman. So they play as the linkage actors, and this leads to the very complex distribution flows and very difficult. That's why we very difficult to manage our product, because in each state they will, like I mentioned before, in each state they have their own interest in. So middlemen, they also want to earn income. They want to earn more profit as much as possible. So if the processor, they don't put the very strict requirement, middlemen will reduce, don't think about the quality first, but they will think about how to maximize their profit first. So we have to call for their cooperation. If so, we have to think about how to manage, how to monitor, how to apply technology to manage them, how to share the benefit, how to making the policy to ensure that the benefit has been shared equally between each agent of supply chain. Very difficult to control the product flows and improve the quality in our countries, in fishery sector, especially in Asian countries. And this is also an example of Vietnamese shrimp supply chain. As you can see, before go across to the global side, we have to spend a lot of stay of middlemen. As you can see, farmer here, but before to this consumer, you can see they have to spend a lot of space, and so very difficult to manage the product flow and very difficult to manage the quality of at its state. And the question is, can we bypass the middleman? The answer, my answer is no, because 80% shrimp material or seafood material or fishery product materials will provided by collector or brokers, by collector or by middleman. The farmers, and also farmers, if they ask them cooperate with processor directly, no, they will answer no, because it's very difficult, very complicated procedure. They want to cooperate directly with collector first. This is their priority, And supply chain nowadays, seafood supply chain on still depend on the middleman, so we cannot bypass them. If we can bypass them, it's very easy, because we can contribute the direct channel from producers to processor and processor to importer or something like this. But we cannot, because the farmers or fishermen, they don't want. And in the information flows management of in seafood sector or fishery sector, there are many purposes, and it's very difficult because our policy from authorities is not very strictly. Example in Vietnam, we have many policy to manage information flows in fishery sector, but because again it's agent in supply chain has their own interest in, so we have, but when we apply, it's not very strictly. So like the management or authorities, they want to manage the quality and food safety, and then they want to adapt. They want to respond the regulation from the exporting countries, like EU now put the yellow card to Vietnam fisheries, of Vietnam, and we have to deal with the yellow card from EU, because the EU conclude that our fisheries now is IUU fishing, so they have to deal with this regulation, and the local authorities, they want to deal with the management, want to improve quality and food safety product, and they want to deal with the regulation, so they only focus in how to sharing information between each stage of supply chain. But for consumer, because they want to know about their product which they purchase or they consume, so they want to know about the information until the fishermen or farmers, but they cannot because their direct seller is retailers. So retailers, and the information the consumers can get depend on the willingness to share of the retailers. Yeah. Yes. As you can see. Yeah, and consumer, they want to know, and they have the right to know about their product information, but it's impossible because the retailers, they have the right, they will be the right driven to provide or not provide the information to the consumer. Yeah. And about the finance flows, because we have the many interesting in at each stage of supply chain in seafood sector, so please think about each agent. Like in food suppliers, when we manage the financial flow, we have to think about how to support, and we think about their demand of working capital to keep their business go on. But if we want to support or we want to manage the finance flows at processor stage, we have to think about their investment. We have to think about lease equipment, and we have to think of medium-term loans. So That's why we have to manage financial flows very different at each stage of supply chain. So please think about the fundamental and the principles of each stage of supply chain. And what is the source of financing in seafood sector? My attention is very difficult to access to the formal Reddit. I'm not sure in Indonesia, maybe after this slide, this presentation, we can discuss more. But in Vietnam now, farmer or fishermen, very difficult to access to the formal Reddit. So they have to access to the informal Reddit from their neighbor, from the wholesaler as well. And that's why they cannot produce, they cannot operate their business activity independently. They have to depend on the wholesalers. And also the problems of asymmetric information in formal Reddit accessibility in Asian countries, in Vietnam, especially in Vietnam, because as I mentioned, fishermen, they are very small scale operations, so they cannot work, they cannot access, and they lack of financial resources to access to the formal Reddit. So in the financial flows of fishery science, fishery supply chain now, we have to think how to solve this problem. And to sum up for my presentation, I would like to conclude that first, if you think about how to implement traceability, you should think about supply chain management first. And all activities of supply chain should support to meet the requirement of end users. And supply chain management, including manage the product flows to improve their product, improve their quality product, improve the information flows, and improve the financial flows to support to improve their quality product. And you have to think about also about the collaboration, integration, and relationship are the most important in supply chain management. In fisheries, we also have to follow the fundamental of supply chain management, because fishery sector is also work like other sectors. So we have to follow the basic of supply chain management. It means that we have to think about the end user first. And from the supply side perspectives, it's very difficult now to call for the collaboration and integration in fishery sector. And from the demand side, it's two complicated requirements. Supply side, we have to call for collaboration and integration to respond the customer requirements. But from the demand side, we have to deal, the supply side have to deal, suppliers have to deal with two complicated requirements and unstable requirements, because it means that they up to the very frequency, and we have to change, we have to adapt day by day, year by year, and we have to deal with so many and so complicated requirements. Maybe this is my sharing today, so I hope this topic will be interesting to you. And please, if you have any question or answer, question or discussion, so please let me know. Thank you very much for your listening and attention.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Dong-sang, for very great presentation. I believe that there will be a fruitful discussion after this. So maybe I will invite one participant maybe for asking the question, if any. Is there any question?
Okay, please.
Yeah. Is there any question? Oh, okay. Yeah, please, Khaira. Just state your name and then asking.
Okay, good afternoon, Miss.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good morning. Sorry. I have question for you. Without the presence of certification, can we improve our supply chain management system? Thank you, Miss.
Management system.
Without the presence of certification, can we improve our supply chain management system?
Okay.
So if there's no certification, can we do that? Can we do or build the supply chain management for fishery system, for
okay,
example?
Okay. Understood. Thank you very much for very good questions. Yeah, this question also I was asked by so many audience when I present or I talk about my research field. Actually, because you know what, this supply chain, the supply chain is very like a new topic in Vietnam, and I believe also in Asian countries, supply chain is also very new topics. So if we don't have certificates, it's possible to manage supply chain. But if we think about globalization, and especially if you want to export your product to the global countries, we have to think about certificate. And if we want to get certificate, we have to connect and we have to manage supply chain.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Dong, for the answer. Actually, there is 3 more questions, but yeah, because of the time limitation, so I should end this lectures. I will give the question by messengers, and then if you don't mind, please answer the question in your next meeting with us. So this is the end of our lecture today. Thank you, Haira Uma, for your question. And then for the other participants, please wait for Dr. Dong answering the question. So thank you also for Dr. Dong sharing your lecture, and we will wait for the next meeting about traceability. If you don't mind, please giving us the material. I will post the materials on our Google Classroom, so the student can enjoy out of the lectures. Okay, thank you very much, and also Dr. Supapong for joining us, and also all of my students and colleagues. Thank you very much for today lecture participation, and we will meet again for the next meeting with Dr. Dong about traceability. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you very much and goodbye.